How's it going, everybody? Joe Snow here with another Deck Tech video for you guys. This is the list that I've been playing recently on the ladder after the new MMR patch, and I've used it to climb up to 4K, top 5 North America, and top 50 worldwide currently, and I'm going to continue to play it. I think the list is very, very good. First, I wanted to just go over a little bit of the statistics here. As you can see, it's heavily favored in the Monster Mirror match, 60% at the high MMRs, a pretty high mark. We've been doing quite well against Skellige as well, very close to 60%. This number is a bit off-putting because there are some versions that you're more heavily favored against than others. Particularly, the brand matchup is a little bit tougher, whereas the standard crack on crate like mid-range sort of deck is a little bit better for us. Excuse me, but overall about 60% is, roughly accurate. Squayatel is sort of a coin toss. This mostly depends on how many golds you draw for the last round, unfortunately, but it sort of is what it is. You don't see a ton of that on ladder. Nilfgaard matchup, while I've only played 3 times, it does seem pretty bad. You are behind, but if you're in the high MMRs, you don't have to worry about it because you do not see them. And Northern Realms seems pretty well favored as well. So let's get into what's going on with the deck. The deck is called Greed because this is pretty much as greedy as you can realistically get in one deck, and it's referring to the Mulligan phase. That's because we are running Frost Dogs with the Frost, we're running Triple Foglets, and we are running the Crones. All of these inclusions do make the Mulligan step particularly skillful and sometimes particularly painful. What you do get for that sacrifice, though, is a huge amount of overall power. Being able to combine all of these effects into one deck gives you just the raw strength to sort of outgun a lot of your opponents. And there's some very powerful tech cards in here that really go a long way towards helping you win specific matchups. To start with the basics, we're Dagon, we're running Foglets, so we're Dagon. Pretty much enough said there. It's a very powerful round 1 play. Thins your deck to get you to the more relevant cards. And yeah, I mean, it's just a really solid hero power. You're likely to get at least 14 points out of your hero power immediately, plus the 3 thinning. If you hit multiple things with the fog, well, there you go. If the fog sticks, great, even better for you. The additional weather effects, we've got the Frost Dogs here. These guys are one of the main deviations from the standard Dagon decks. And anyone who's been watching my videos for a while now is going to say that this is very, very similar to the list that I hit rank 1 worldwide with before the last patch. And it's very true. The deck has a lot of similarities. The shell of it is basically the same, and it's still just as powerful. Why are we including the Frost Dogs and screwing up our mulligans for it? Because they're insanely powerful. Being able to pop Harpy eggs is great. There's a ton of monster mirrors going on. The additional weather effects also just compound really, really nicely. Decks only have X amount of ways to deal with weather, be that 1 or 3 or however many they're currently running at the time. So the more weather effects you have, the more powerful they all get, because eventually you're going to run your opponent out of the weather effects. We'll get more into that once you start talking about the gold cards, but the more effects that you run, the more powerful that they each become individually, and this is, a very large part of the deck's success. We're running only 2 Harpies, mostly due to the presence of bears. Also, they're a pretty bad top deck going into round 3, and due to your mulligans being awkward as they are, you don't want a ton of cards that you really want to throw away in your mulligan because, well, your mulligans are pretty much well taken up in this deck already. There's not a lot you can do about it, and cards that you actively want to throw away, just based on power level, you really can't afford a ton of them in the deck. So that's why we're on 2 Harpies. The 3 Griffins have just been lifesavers. The top of the ladder, as you can see here, we have, 110 games logged, and we've got 43 of them against the monsters and 33 of them against Skelliges. That's a huge percentage. Most of these decks are running weathers. You'll see a little bit of weather from some of the other decks, possibly our Tusa Adepts here. The Spelletel deck also runs a bunch of weather. And the Griffins are just invaluable. They basically allow you to sort of stack a row and keep your board clear, making Axemen much less viable against you, shutting down your opponent's Foglets, and stopping a lot of the big golds that you see in the other monster decks that have less weather than us. I would not run the deck in this current ladder with anything less than the 3 Griffins. I think they're absolutely essential to this build. Rounding out the bronzes, we have the 2 frost effects that go with the 2 frost dogs. Seems pretty self-explanatory. 1 bronze fog here, and this is mostly due to the fact that you just wanted another way to pull your foglets. It's pretty powerful. This allows you to reliably cast your fog in all 3 rounds if you're forced to play all 3 rounds, but almost definitely get it off in rounds 1 and round 3, the most important rounds by far. So I've been pretty pleased with this. The Blood-Curdling Roar is a bit strange in this deck, as we really don't have any large units besides the bear, so it sort of opens us up to Succubus, and we don't exactly have Catacant eat it either. That being said, the one of is still powerful enough with Harpy Eggs as a big tempo swing for a 14-point bronze play, and it's really nice with the Woodland Spirit when you need a finisher in round 3. This card's not super essential to the deck, but it hasn't been awkward enough that I've deemed to cut it yet, so that's why it's still in there. The Marjoram is a complete tech slot, and this can change, game to game to game based on what you're facing most of. This is for the Axeman version of Skellige. I had it as an Alzur's Thunder for quite some time. Alzur's Thunder is mostly good at handling bears, although you're never going to get all the bears off the board. It's pretty good at making sure your opponent doesn't have multiple bears going, at which point you're really, really screwed, because bears are pretty good against this deck. Yeah, so I've settled on the Marjoram, and if you're playing against a ton of monsters, you can even consider something like a Snamelford's Tremors, as Tremors can be really powerful. In the Monster Mirror, sometimes they'll pass, being up 12 or 13 points, and their mindset is basically he can't overcome in 1 unless he plays exactly Crones, and if he plays Crones, I'm happy with that. And the Tremors can just be a real beating, as well as pop all of their eggs going into the next round. But this is certainly a tech slot, and you could change this up and basically put in whatever you want. On to the silvers. The Crones. Not a lot of people are still playing these guys. I understand why. That being said, I think they're just very, very powerful, and I don't want to cut them. They're such an insane tempo swing in round 1. If you can manage to hold on to them until round 3, particularly in the Monster Mirror, your opponent's very likely to be outgunned, as 20 points from one card is just a very, very significant amount, and it's not 20 points all in one body, like, let's say a 17-point Catacant or something, when it eats a bear that is weak to Fiend. It being spread out makes it a little bit weaker to weather. It's just very, very hard for particularly other monster decks to deal with. And against Skellige, when your opponent's dropping Kalmars and stuff, a lot of times you need a high-tempo way to try and keep up with them. Particularly, let's say you lose round 1, you're going into round 2, and they Kalmar you because they're going to renew them anyway in round 3. This is a very good way to keep up with the Kalmar Shield Maiden tempo. I found them invaluable, obviously quite annoying, and they make your mulligan significantly worse, but I think overall that the power level is worth it here. Moving along to the rest of the silvers, we've got the Hag. I would not play it without the Hag. The Hag's amazing. It's a global weather clear, which is super useful, as I'm sure everyone who's playing on the ladder right now knows, as well as Lacerate, which you almost never use the rain. There are situations, but it's pretty rare. A lot of times the Lacerate, particularly with Caranthir lining up rows, yeah, the Lacerate has won me a ton of games on the ladder, once again, mostly in conjunction with Caranthir. It's just very, very powerful, and I wouldn't play without it. Fiend is a bit interesting here. You could sort of take it or leave it. The fact that I'm not running Shackles, and I wanted another answer to an Axeman on the board that's not going to put it in the graveyard. Notice that both of my main tools at dealing with Axemen do not put them in the graveyard. So it sort of turns off them using a Priestess of Freya to bring it back. And that's not by accident. That's definitely done on purpose here. Fiend is also really good at shutting down the Consume variants that are running Ekimaras. Oftentimes, they're going to build a giant Ekimara, and you can just shut the carryover down completely, as well as get a pretty big tempo swing off of it. Sometimes they get upwards of 20 strength, so you're getting 15 plus value out of the card and turning off a carryover. This also makes you much less weak to Vran Warrior. If you're unable to pop eggs with Frost Dogs in round 1, we only have 2. Sometimes you don't draw them. It's actually beneficial for you to let them keep munching in a lot of situations to get one giant Vran Warrior that you can then just kind of smite down with the Fiend. So I found this card to be very, very good, and I would not consider cutting it. The Frightener is particularly... It's not as good in a deck that doesn't run Succubus. However, with the increase in players playing carryover cards, a lot of times you do just sort of want to pass round 2, or if you win round 1 down a card, this will let you just get back that card, even through carryover. You don't care if they carry over 20 points if you won the first round anyway and you have this. Then you can bleed them until your hand is exactly the size you want it to move into round 3. So Frightener's great at that, but the most important part about Frightener is actually an answer to other spies. When your opponent spies you, this isn't a deck that likes to fall behind 2 cards. You really need to avoid that like the plague, and obviously it's bad in most scenarios. This deck really just has trouble coming back from it, though. So if your opponent has, a Cantarella, the Oodalric, etc., or their own Frightener, Frightener is just the best possible answer to it, as well as this card does give you a lot more game in like the Spellettel matchup, where they're always running Yavin, and it widely comes down to who has card advantage and how many golds did you draw. This is going to increase the chance of me drawing more golds, and be a nice answer to their Yavin, effectively for free, because I'll just be able to weather it down when my weather likely wasn't going to have any other targets. Let's move into the fun part of the deck, the big scary gold cards. So Woodland Spirit has been pretty much a staple in Foglet decks for, as long as Foglet decks have been around, and I don't see any reason to change it. He's still really good. Against Skellige, notably, you want to use him really, really aggressively. Whenever they don't have a bear, basically just jam him, get him down. Because of the fact that the Rabid Wolves and the Foglets both take a hit, like, you just lose 6 points of strength in the face of even 1 bear, which is particularly detrimental. So you have to sort of jam it at the first opportunity against Skellige. Otherwise, it's still an insanely powerful card. Caranthir was one of the newer additions to the deck once I cut Succubus, which I'll talk about in a moment. And Caranthir is amazing. Obviously, the Frost effect's very, very powerful, probably the most powerful weather. We have the Lacerate to really punish them after we line up a row. And these 2 weather golds, you can usually get their weathers to stick, because people are going to have to burn their clears early on your Fog effect, your Hero effect, the 2 Frost that you have coming out of the Frost Dogs. Their weather effects are going to be really stretched, and you're oftentimes able to stick one of these for the entire duration of round 3, which is really where you want to play them. And it's just super punishing, and you're very likely to win the game if that's how the game plays out. So the next gold we have is Spear Tip. I was considering adding an Igni, which Igni would still be better against Northern Realms. Spear Tip, as a new addition, I only played maybe 15 or so of the games with Spear Tip in it. I added him yesterday, I want to say. He has been absolutely insane for me. You can sort of think of him like an Igni that doesn't need 20 strength to trigger, and doesn't need values lined up to get amazing value. I oftentimes get well above 20 and sometimes upwards of 30 value from the Spear Tip, and it's an easier to trigger condition than the Igni. Flipping him back and forth sometimes is nice, but usually he's just like a 10 that deals 10 damage and buffs 2 of your guys. It's going to happen a lot. The card's very, very powerful, and I'm surprised it's taken a lot of people this long to really start latching onto him, because the Spear Tip is just amazing here. Now, Caretaker, this is a card that was previously in almost every monster deck, ubiquitously, and has really fallen out of favor. I'm not exactly sure why, but the Caretaker is very, very powerful here. He's actually a flex slot. And what I mean by that is, obviously he's bad round 1, and he does not really help you push for the board round 1, except if your weather actually starts killing things, which does happen from time to time because we have so much weather going on. But usually he's a late game play, and I've used him to pull Archgriffins out of my opponent's graveyard to clear weather. I've used him to pull Mages to get another Frost or Fog effect. I've used him to pull Jotuns. The uses for this guy are basically endless. If you can't find a Crone, you can pull one of the other monster players' Crones to get the whole 4 Crone train going on. This guy is amazing. He's just a super valuable flex slot. Stealing Grimace is particularly powerful in this deck. I mean, stealing Grimace and then making a bear, popping a Harpy Egg, etc., etc. You can get upwards of 20 value off of him quite frequently. He does have a lower floor than some of the other golds, as sometimes he's just going to be roughly 10 to 12 points worth of value. That is a rare case, though, and doubling as another way to possibly clear weather in most scenarios, getting a Blue Stripes, a Mage, an Archgriffin from an enemy, has just been awesome for me, and I wouldn't consider cutting him. Now, the one gold in particular that you can't see here is Succubus. Succubus is in probably about 90% of monster decks right now, and that's actually the reason I'm not playing it. I think that Succubus on raw power level would definitely make it into this deck above one of these cards. That being said, the entire ladder is ready for Succubus. They're going to play around Succubus, they're going to assume you have Succubus, and they're teching bad cards into their deck like Shackles to help deal with Succubus. So if they're just going to be waiting for Succubus, playing around it, not playing their big unit, you're going to gain a ton of value off of that. Also, letting them have a dead Shackles in their hand that they want to keep in round 3 to like protect their Catachan or something, you're just getting a free card because Shackles doesn't do anything against us. You get a lot of value off of not playing it. If the meta switches back to a state where Succubus isn't so ubiquitous and everywhere, maybe it becomes good again. But in this current state, it's not enough better than any of the other goals. While it might be better, it's not enough better to justify it in a world where everyone's ready for it. And I think that's just a good general thought to keep in mind when evaluating cards. Another card I've been asked about a lot on my stream in particular is Renew. Why I'm not playing Renew to get another Caranthea or another Woodland Spirit, etc. And although I think Renew is obviously an insanely powerful card, I don't think it's right for this deck because A, it's another card that doesn't really help me push for round 1, which doesn't really jive with Caretaker, and B, it's a card that you do want to mulligan away from time to time, and yeah, that's not what this deck's in the business of doing. My mulligans are already all spoken for. I need them all every game. I need more of them, if anything. Yeah, so that's why we don't have Renew. The thing about Gales is, Gales, I do not like the interaction with Gales and the Crones. It's often very, very awkward, because sometimes I'm going to need to push around. I'm not in complete control of the game, and I'm going to Gales. Maybe I have a Crone or two already in hand. It's very likely to show me another Crone, making my future draw steps bad. That's the main reason we don't have Gales. Also, with as much deck thinning as we do have, oftentimes by round 3 you are able to see all 4 of your golds. And in that type of position, it's better just to have 4 super valuable golds that all do something. So that's the reason that Gales and Renew aren't included in the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to see some gameplay, feel free to stop by my stream, Twitch TV/Joe Snow. The O in Snow is a 0. I'm actually going to start streaming this deck in about 20 minutes at 4K+. Give you guys a little bit of the proof of ladder, as I've been asked about this for other videos before we sign off here. So yeah, right now we're in the top 50 in America, just over 4K. That's where I ended the stream yesterday. And we're sitting front page, top 5 North America with the list. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe. I'll be doing these once or twice a week. Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by, and take care, everyone. Have a good one, and good luck.